All right. Hello. Good day, and welcome back for another week with Humble Devs working our way towards getting a build up and running for our SaaS. All right. Okay. So first things first, let me just have a quick look at the stream. For anyone watching live, if you don't mind, just let me know if the audio is good. Then we'll get started. All right. Great stuff. All right. So, this week is going to be very different because up to now, so we've had 6 weeks where we've covered quite a lot. So we started with, you know, looking at some HTML, which by now I guess you understand how relatively simple that is in compared to working with JavaScript in the front end and the back end. We looked into CSS to understand how web applications are styled. We also looked at all of the frameworks that can be used for CSS in order to like use ready-made components and templates and color schemes and all these kind of things. So you don't have to go out and like script out all of the CSS for each one of them. And of course, we dived into JavaScript. We looked into JavaScript and like its core functionality within the front end, so the browser, and what the user interface will be able to do and perform, as well as we ended with looking at the back end, right? So we looked at Node, we looked at the difference between the front end, the client side of things, and the server side of things, right? Which is all great. And last week, we also had a look at how do we integrate AI into our like development cycle. How do we leverage the capabilities of AI nowadays in order to say, okay, I won't script out all of these things manually, or at least I don't need to per se, and I can give most of that work to AI, and then I'll just be in the driver's seat, so I'll decide what I want to build, and I'll tell it what I need, and it will build that for me. All right. So today and for this week, I want to focus on laying down the foundations of our build. So if we're going to start building an app, so we've understood everything so far, right? And even if we didn't, right, we want to start. So I have an idea for an application that I want to build, right? And even if you're a developer, right? So even if you've developed software before, it doesn't mean that you already know everything, right? Because when you're building a new application, um, you have the idea, then you will have to look into, okay, what do I need in terms of technology to put that into uh, reality. And then when you start building, you will interact with like different systems, third-party solutions, and all the way through like designing, implementing, and adding all of the needed functionality to call your app finished, or at least a version of it that you deem finished enough to use, right, by your target audience. And that is the focus for today. Now, um, we have already seen, and I've already touched on the fact that within software development, you are really leveraging the knowledge, experience, and hard work of so many people who have done something before you because they found that they needed a solution or they needed something that didn't exist, right? And we're therefore like we're leveraging the work of thousands upon thousands of developers who have built frameworks, pieces of software, solutions, plugins, all for mostly free, right? And that is what we're leveraging in order to make it so that it is relatively easy nowadays for us to start building a piece of software, right? Now, having said that, in order for you to not get lost when you're building your application, you have to plan first. Because if you don't, what will end up happening is that you will start building, and at some point, you need to make a decision to choose a third-party solution to leverage, whether you're integrating with it or whether you have to integrate it into your app, or that you want to do something that isn't possible with the way that you've currently built your app. Um, and especially if you're leveraging AI to do most of that implementation for you, it's going to be very difficult to revert from all of that and, continue in the way that now you see that you want to build your app, right? So in order to avoid getting in a position where you haven't fully thought out what your version one of your app is going to be, we start with planning, because then we can create a very structured like workflow, as well as like pieces of functionality that we can tell our AI agent to build one at a time, right? So we looked, of course, at the web AI solutions like Lovable, like Bolt, like V0, where you just go to the website. There's just one window, just like you're googling, for example. You enter your prompt. You're like, I want to build this, right? And it just goes and builds, tries to build your app in like one go, right? Which is not feasible at the end of the day. Sure, if you want to build something super simple, just like a single page app that has very limited functionality, it will most probably pull that off. Um, but even then, like, you haven't integrated into a database, you haven't thought about how you're going to deploy this, you haven't thought about, like, signing and management of users and all these kind of things, right? So we're not going to do that. And the AI industry also knows that very well. And this is why most solutions nowadays are becoming agentic driven, right? So any AI solution that specifically targets development and coding has now been introducing agentic coding, which is like, okay, you have the AI, but then they add a couple of agents in the middle to do different tasks. So you'll have an agent that will help you plan. You have an agent that will help you structure what needs to happen first and then what needs to happen last and everything that needs to happen in the middle somewhere. You have an agent that will be dedicated to writing the software, right? Not the planning. And you have an agent that will test your software based on the requirements, so that you build an app like you would if you are actually developing, right? So if you're methodically developing your application, you're going to be thinking about what you're going to do before you're going to implement. You'll implement, and then you'll open the browser or like a mobile phone, whatever it is, that whatever target device you're trying to build for. You'll open that and you play around with it and see whether you run into any problem or limitation or something that the user might do that might break your app or expose some information, right? So all of these things have to also be available for you when you're building with AI, right? In order to really be able to build something that is good and sustainable. And with that, I want to introduce to you something that has been built by, again, someone in the software development sphere, which is really game changing, right? Because um, if we actually before we do that, let me go to Okay. So we've of course already prompted AI to generate a couple of things for us, right? But these were very like simple and very straightforward requests. So, we've asked it to build a Kanban board, but only using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? And then we told the AI to build it, using a framework, which again is okay and is relatively simple, but we're still only doing local storage, so we're just storing information locally on the machine. We're not handling any like user signups or login, or we're not handling data for various users, and we're not storing these in a database somewhere. So all of this is relatively straightforward, right? However, um, if we're going to be building an application using frameworks, using third-party solutions, using a whole bunch of different tools, right? Mostly, we will also be starting to use uh, um, our coding environment, so our IDE, in this case VS Code, to set up rules, right? So I want to uh, yes. How do you not configure structure? Yes. Okay. 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 So we're then going to be setting up new. Well, they're called instructions here, which is fine. Um, so let's say uh, general agent behavior. Um, okay, so yeah, so we can store the rule in GitHub or the user. I'm just gonna put it in my folder because it's going to be only there temporarily. We're gonna give it a name. So uh, general agent behavior. Okay, cool. So what happens is that when we're trying to build something, right? We're going to be setting up rules for our AI, and the these rules will basically serve to tell AI what it shouldn't be doing and should be doing. So here you see the examples. It says, okay, provide project context as well coding guidelines that AI should follow when generating code, answering questions, or reviewing changes, right? So if I'm using JavaScript, and I want to, create my functions in a specific structure, right? I can create a rule just for that. Like, okay, if you're going to be, it applies to, anything that is .javascript, for example, anything .js. So any file that is a JavaScript file, if I'm going to make a function, make it in this kind of way. Or um, I'm going to create a rule, which is very common, that will say, okay, my tech stack, so all of the technology that I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using Next.js. I want you to write not JavaScript but TypeScript, right, for type safety. Um, I want you to use, this CSS framework. I want to use Tailwind, yes or no. I'm going to use this solution for my database. I'm going to be using this solution for like user signups. And why is that so important? It's because once AI starts writing the code, right? Um, it has something that is called a context window, right? So when we ask our agent to do something for us, and specifically for like an agent mode or an edit mode, every platform and every AI model will have a limited amount of memory, right? So it's like memory is of course always like limited somehow, right? But every like agent or every kind of AI model will have its own context window. And that context window is generally described in number of tokens. So let's maybe look this up very quickly. Okay. AI token limits comparison. All right. So, okay. Now you don't have to read too much into these, but it's important to be aware of it, right? So intelligence is not what we're looking for. So we're specifically talking about intelligence token window. None of that is here seemingly. Yeah. Yeah, okay, not even this actually. Cost of running context window. Okay. So finally, right. So the context window will greatly differ. And the context window is very simple. This is just the space of memory that the agent or the AI model that you're talking to has, and it's available to use to store all of the information that is relevant to the project that you are currently working on, right? So if we look at the most common ones, right? So if we're looking at uh, like ChatGPT, it has a context window of 131,000, right? We have Claude Opus has 200,000. We have ChatGPT o2, 200,000. We have Gwen 3, and at the end of the day, why is that important? You can see here, for example, ChatGPT, especially like the new model, has 400,000 context window, as well as we have the how do you call it? The Google Gemini frameworks that have 1 million, which is like really exceptional in comparison to everything else, as well as the Claude 4 Sonnet, which is a paid subscription, which is quite expensive. ChatGPT 4.1. Now again, these numbers are fine, right? Um, when is this important to you, right? So if we go back to our code editor, and we're going to be asking our agent or the AI model that we have at our disposal to, create an app from scratch, right? Now, all of that information about the app, so the technology stack, how we want our application to function, all of the different things that the application needs to do, right? All of that has to be stored inside of this context window. And the context window is filling up as you talk more to the agent, and as you request more things, and as it needs to research and pull data from like its information, um, uh, like its databases, as well as information from any kind of online solution that it does research on. So all of that information has to be stored within this context window, right? When the context window is filled up, right? That information, so some of the information that's in there has to be let go. And this is the point of breaking, basically. If you're reaching the limit of your context window, you will very, very quickly see that the AI is all of a sudden start doing things that you don't expect, or it will start rewriting things that it has just recently written. And these are all signs of being already over the context window, because like it might have created a JavaScript file for you just recently, and now it's like rewriting it because it forgot that it wrote that. And now it goes through the JavaScript file and reviews it fully because it has now basically forgotten that what was in there to start with. So it will start a loop of iterating over your code and reiterating and rewriting things. And you might have told it that, okay, I want to use this framework, or I want to use this specific tool to do this specific task. And then it would forget that because the context window is full and some information needed to be removed. And now it can just um, install another solution that does the exact same thing, right? And now you have two identical solutions installed, but both of them function differently. And it will start to configure the new solution for you while it was already mostly configuring the old one. And if you don't catch that, and if you don't see that happening, then this can very easily create a scenario where the project that you're working on is very broken. And if you didn't catch what AI did or what it's doing, and you don't understand what it's implementing to start with, then it's going to be very hard to go back from that point, right? So it's going to be either like you have used Git to push your working code, and then you can like remove this new build and like start again, for example. But if you've already like committed and like you're now too far in to know where this started to break, then you might as well scrap your project and like start all the way from the beginning. Okay, so this is the importance of the context window. And to make sure that we don't reach the limit of our context window, we need to structure our instructions to AI to be limited to doing a single task, right? It can do much more, right? But we never want to risk the point where we are on the edge of context window just because we want to squeeze out a little bit more, like for this session, and while it already knows everything that has happened during the session. You can, of course, like start building on a functionality and ask a couple of questions and have it fix a couple of things or add a couple of things. That's fine. But in general, we should structure our project in a way that we have a plan, right? And we implement that plan one piece at a time, right? So we're not going to be implementing something, even if it's small, and finish it. And then we're like, okay, let's continue to the next one, because then very quickly it's going to escalate into, we might need to add this, we might need to add that, we might need to look into that. And before you know it, you've like overcommitted in terms of like memory for your context window, and things can start to go wrong very, very quickly. Because I also have to explain that when you have a project that you have already started building and have been building on for a bit, your project will also become large. So the AI model won't know everything that's in your project. So you will have to instruct it to look into specific files and to, review specific documents when it works. Just to make sure that it knows what it needs to know in order to make the right decisions. Because at the end of the day, whenever the AI is going to look through your code, is only going to see and recognize what it touches, and everything else, it has no idea that it exists, right? And that's why it's also very important for us to review very diligently everything that it writes or rewrites, to make sure that, okay, if it changes something where we're like, why are you changing that? Then this is a signal for us to stop what we're doing at that moment and review everything that the AI has done up to this point, and possibly even discarding everything that it has, which is very easy using the current IDEs that we use, and just prompt it again and let it give it another shot. Because like you've seen, most probably with the demo that I did when we asked the AI to build us a very small Kanban, no two results were the same. Even if you would use the same exact AI model to and give the same prompt, it would still come up with a different result, because the way that it reasons, it just takes your request and it just makes decisions as it goes through your request. And these decisions can, of course, be different on the second time and the third time and the 10th time, right? So having said all of that, how do we go about creating that structure? Well, this is where we go back to this, right? I'll link this in the Discord channel for today. When I came across this, and this was quite a bit ago, so we are now on version 4. And this has grown like tremendously, right? So there was version 1, which was quite a bit ago. I don't know when this was published. It said this was updated 3 months ago for the last time. But things like move very, very quickly in the AI space, as you would have known. So if we go back to the main branch, the BMAD method, right, is a method that was designed by someone who deploys the agile methodology of working for software development, which is really, really great. I will also leave I'll leave a link to the YouTube channel of O'Brien, who is the guy who created this model. And it started with a very simple premise. So he's like, okay, I'm like, for every project that I want to implement, I'm like putting all of these rule files, and he compiled basically a set of rules that he generally deploys for pretty much every project, and just alter these for like the technology stack that he wants to use, or like the kind of software that he wants to build. And this is, of course, something that most people using AI to build software are going to do. So this, and he made a couple of videos about it, and it caught on. So a lot of people were looking into it, and they're like, yeah, that is actually quite great. I mean, he's of course not the only one. There are plenty of people who have published their like rule sets on GitHub, so you can find plenty more. But the way that Brian like developed the concept here is more from separating the build process into different stages, not just setting up rules for things that AI should keep in mind when it's building. And this is where like we've landed on now in version 4, where there are a number of distinct agents that you can utilize to plan, document your plan, architect based on the plan, create tasks for AI, again, based on your plan and your architecture document. And then when all of that is done, you then tell AI to implement every single task that is there, because all of these will have been planned and pre-planned and structured, and will have criteria that will tell them, okay, this is what you need to implement. These are the success factors. So this is how you decide whether you have implemented something correctly. This is how you would need to test it in order to validate that it works properly, before it can move on to the next task, right? So doing all of this methodically, one item at a time, will make it so that the agent, that is the developer, who is going to be building, can only worry about a single task at any given moment. And if they're like very small, you can of course have it do multiple tasks one after the other. But then, even after doing that, you can just start a new chat and you'll be like, okay, continue with task number 5 or 6 or 100, right? And this is something that I would advise to use. Absolutely, you don't have to, but it will make things much easier for you in terms of getting the most out of the help of AI to build your application. And especially if you're planning to build your app mostly based on the capabilities of AI, so you don't plan on writing or like deploying like a lot of things yourself manually first and setting up your project and getting something started before having AI add things to your project, then this is really a great way to go. And you can of course use it for something for an existing project or a project that you already started building. But then the start will be a bit different because you'll also need to give it context about your project so that it can help you plan going forward. Okay. All right. So how does this work? We're not going to go through the entire guide because we're going to actually run through this and use it in practice today. The general idea is you have an analyst, right, which is your business analyst. And this is an agent that has a specific persona, that has rule sets, that has like a sort of an identity, right? That can help you to plan, right? So it will do research with you and for you, and it will tell you whether something is uh, like how your idea is, what kind of tech stack should you be using, what are the solutions out there that are similar to what it is that you're trying to build, and what do they use, for example. And then, so you can use your analyst to brainstorm, to do market research, to like do competitor analysis if that's something that you want to uh, to dabble in. But then it will um, create something that is very, very important, which is your project brief. So based on the requests that you've made, so all of the functionality that you say that you want for your application. And again, it's important to focus on telling it what you want your app to do as a minimum and functionality that you want to implement once the minimum viable product has been built, right? So it's better to implement a project where you have your minimum functionality met and that's fully functional than going to like build everything, every single feature that you ever want in your application before you ever consider the application to be ready to be published, for example, right? Because then you will be pushing out or pushing forward, doing a lot of things like setting up your database, setting up your like authentication, and like figuring out your hosting. If you're going to be doing a lot of technical deployments of like all kinds of solutions and functionalities before getting to do all of that. So once your brief is done, and you can also skip the brief. So if you're not going to do a lot of market research and brainstorming and whatnot, you just have a simple idea that you want to build. You can still have it like ask you questions about your app and like make some decisions in that way. And after that, we will be handing over the product brief to the project manager. So this is also a persona that exists inside of the framework of the BMAT method. And the a project manager will basically create your PRD, which is your product requirement document. And this is very important because that will become the basis on which the build of your application yeah, so that will be the basis on which all of the decisions will be made to build your application, right? That's your PRD. Once the PRD is created, right? You can then go ahead and say, okay, I want the project manager to start going through the product requirement document and already break everything up into various tasks, right? So it's going to be, okay, the PRD is now ready. We need to do all of this for version 1. So in order to do that, we're going to create epics. So if you like, if epics is a new term to you, an epic just means within software development that you have a piece of functionality. So let's say, for example, we want to implement user authentication. That is an epic. And in that epic, you will have a lot of tasks or stories that are okay. which platform are we going to be using for user authentication? What are all of the different bits and pieces that we need to implement in our application that will allow us to have users authenticate, right? So we need a form in order for people to be able to provide us their email address, password, all these kind of things. How will this be communicated to the platform that we're going to be used to authenticate? So all of these things are then tasks or stories within that epic. And the epic is there to make sure that at the end of the day, when we say that epic is complete, that user authentication is functional, right? And it can have 10 or 20 tasks within it, but they all fall within that epic that is just there to enable users to be able to authenticate, right? Okay. We can, if we need a UI, which we most probably will do, we have a UI expert, which is also a persona that will then look at the PRD, look at the tasks, and be able to decide whether how the UI should look like. What you could do, which is something that I also like to do, is use the online AI generation tools like Lovable, like V0, like Bolt, and give them a prompt to, that will just create the front end of your app. So tell it exactly what your app needs to do and all of the different like screens that your application should have and the aesthetic that you want to that you're looking for, and it will build just a front end for you, which is great. But they also will build it with generally quite good design. So you can just um, take screenshots of that, take the CSS files or Tailwind files or whatever it is that they use to create the design, and provide these as artifacts to your UI expert, to your X expert. Be like, okay, I want it to look like that, and you can provide the pictures, you can provide the CSS files. They're like, okay, take inspiration from these, and based on this design and based on this color scheme, that's how I want my app to look like. Because if you're just going to, if there is no visual artifact that the AI can use, then it will just design something on its own, and you'll have to see whether it's something that you like at the end of the day or don't. Right, so it's better to give it something that it can take as inspiration, so that it can create something similar to it. All right. So that's the UX part, and then after that we can. Okay, we're gonna skip the QA thingy. Okay, then we have a product owner, and the product owner is the person who is responsible for the product to actually get built at the end of the day. And they will they will run through a checklist to make sure that they have all of the artifacts and all of the documentation, all of the tasks and whatnot ready. And they can then start planning. So they will plan for your application to get built. And then basically you can, task your AI to build one thing at a time. And all of this is already pre-structured for you. So the structure might be too much. So if you're like, okay, this is quite extensive, and my application is relatively simple, I don't need all of that, you can skip certain steps, so you don't have to go through like all of this. But the better your project is documented and defined, the easier it is for AI to build the project or the product functionally, I wouldn't say without, with very little like errors and problems and things that you have to fix afterwards, and like, features being implemented, but not being connected to other features that are important within your app, because this is also like a common pitfall for AI to like build something that is obviously connecting to something else in your application, but that connection is then never made, and you have to go through the troubleshooting steps to find like where all of that needs to go, and instruct it to do that specifically, right? Um, so I hope all of this is clear. I know this is a bit much, but I think it puts in perspective that whatever we've covered up to this point is not like absolutely not everything that you need to know in order to build something nowadays, right? So just knowing a bit of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is great. But if you want to build a modern app, there's going to be plenty of tools that you need to use, platforms that you need to use in order to get there, which has nothing to do with writing code, right? But it is a part of developing something. Okay. So, yeah, I've rambled on for quite a bit. Um, so let's put this into practice, right? And I would really advise, if you're going to be following this, keep the user guide handy and go through it one step at a time, because otherwise it is very easy for AI, even with all of the things that have already been put in place and all of the rules that are already there and the personas and what they should and shouldn't be doing. I've used this before, and even with all of that, the first agent that you'll talk to, which is the analyst, will already at some point ask you, should I start building your project? And you're like, no, 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 we're very far from that at the moment, right? But at the end of the day, it will like reason for itself and think that, I think we have the information that we need. Should I start installing your framework for you and start building this? And you're like, no, just stick to the script and let's continue planning and let's do this. So you really still need to brace yourself and like keep the AI in check, so to speak. Yeah, because there is also like, after all of this planning and pre-planning, here is the actual development side of things. So when are we going to start like working on actual implementing the project? And this kind of starts here, right? So evaluating every single task, going through it, executing it, testing it, validating the outputs, all of these kind of things. And yeah, and documenting. This is also something that's really really important, because as you will develop your app, it's important to document what it is that you're doing. But this is something that most people developing applications are notoriously bad at doing or lazy at doing, because you would rather work on like your feature or finish something that you're working on already for a week than sitting down and like writing up the documentation for what it is that you're trying to achieve. And this is one of the like great benefits of using AI nowadays, is that it can document what it's doing while it's doing it, and also comment your code, so it tells you exactly what each piece of code does, which is just great if set up correctly. All right. Okay. So again, we can talk about this for a couple of hours most probably, but let's shift gears and do things differently now. So let's start the build, and I've had a hard time deciding what the final build is going to be honest. So I started, and from the beginning, I've been like, building like Kanban board for like task management and whatnot, which is fine. Um, but I don't think that is a very great like project to build, at least not for myself. Um, so I'm going to be building something different, which is going to be called yeah. So it's very simple. It's going to be a clone of Twitter, or at least what used to be Twitter, with its own like distinct identity at some point. But I think um, it's a good project to build as like a first project, because there is user interaction, so you can post things, and other users should be able to like it or like thumb it up or something like that. You can have like comment threads added by different users to it. So it's much more complex in terms of like interaction than just a Kanban board where I mean, it can have, of course, complexity. So you can have tasks. These tasks can have subtasks. You can link it to like a calendar view that should show them like an appropriate dates and whatnot. And you can add a lot of functionality to it. But still, it's like a single user experience, right? Where this is going to be something that if and when hosted online at the end of this course is something that can be used by others to interact with others' content, right? So let's do that. I don't have a name for it. So now what should I call it? What's a good name for a Twitter clone in the humble dev's identity? Uh, I don't know. Shall we call it humble? I mean, I want to call it humble interactions, but interaction is bit of a difficult word to put in the title. Let's call it. I'm gonna call it humble words for now. If you have an idea for the name that's better than mine, feel free to drop a message about it. Let's go with humble words, not to waste too much time on it. Okay, so I'm gonna close my folder here. So we're just gonna save everything, and we're gonna start from scratch, right? So we're going to open our project. So we're going to start from like 0 and utilize the BMAT method in order to build our app, right? So I'm going to be doing this live with you. I will have some information in some like few slides for the like next weeks, but we're mostly going to be focusing on like building, talking you through what I'm doing as I'm building, providing some guidance, and I hope that you guys will do the same and follow along. And because this is the importance of doing this like with the group, because you will get stuck at some point. You will need to make a decision on a framework or a platform to use, and you might want to have a discussion with people about it, or you might want to see whether someone has already used it and whether they would recommend it or not, right? So this is the way that we're going to be doing it going forward. I'll also work on this project outside of these streams, which I will stream as well. So I will put the link to these streams when I do them in the Discord server as well. So you're welcome to join these and like build together or ask questions, because I really want to make some decent progress, as well as have this build completed by the time we reach our 12-week mark. All right. So, how do we begin? Like, where do we start? It's very simple. So there is an installation guide here that will tell you how to get started. So what do you need? You need Node, which we have already installed, and if you haven't done so, you can just go to nodejs.org and download Node.js, or do it through the Node version manager, or do it through Homebrew, and get it set up. We need Git, which we already have. We are working in a new folder. We don't have Git yet, which is something that we might want to initialize already. So we can already do Git init in this folder, because again, you need to initialize Git for each individual project to keep track of its information. So let's do that here. Yeah, we have initialized Git for this project. It doesn't show up because these are hidden folders, but they will be there. And okay, so we have Node, we have Git, and optional it says get these two extensions for VS Code, right? Which we'll do. So it says Markdown all in one, which is a Markdown reader, and then we have Markdown preview Mermaid support, and Mermaid is basically this. So these are like flows, or like how do you call these again? Just like how do you call it? Workflow representations within Markdown. So it's these are annotated in Markdown, and Mermaid is a way to show them in this manner based on their Markdown representation. So this is translated from Markdown to Mermaid. It shows them in a beautiful, like, actual workflow, instead of this just being text and you have a bunch of like lines going between all of these items. Okay, so let's install these and get going. So this is the extensions window. We can go here and we can say that we want to install Markdown all in one. So I'm just gonna do Markdown all in one. You can also, like, let me cancel out of this. So there is of course more, right? So these are plugins that are created by companies, created by individuals. Doesn't really matter. Some of these might be like outdated. So we have two. So you see, I have here Markdown all in one, which only has 17,000 downloads, which is maybe not that little. But this one was yeah, so it was updated the last time in 2022. So this is a few years old now. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't work, but it's always better to use one that is more up to date. So this one also has the same name, but has more than 11 million installs and has been updated a couple of months ago, right, this year. So this is most probably the one that's being referred to, just because, like, again, you can have multiple plugins that will have the identical name pretty much. So it's always important to install the one that you need. So we're just going to install this. Yeah, so it will ask you, like, you're installing something published by this individual or this company for the first time. Do you trust this person or organization? You can of course do some research on this if you like. If a tool is that popular, I'm just going to assume that it's okay to use, and this is something that does turn out negatively sometimes, and we might talk about something that happened recently in a bit. But for now, we're just going to say, okay, we trust this and we want to install it. The installation is very fast; it's already done. And it said something about Markdown with Mermaid. So I'm just gonna add this and see what it comes. Yeah, so we have this one, Markdown preview Mermaid support, which is the name that was mentioned. This one is also one that has quite a large install base. I don't see immediately as anything else with the Mermaid specifically. So it says Mermaid YAML. Okay, but this is specifically for YAML files. Okay, I think this is the one, Markdown preview Mermaid. So again, this is the Markdown representation. If you see this image here, so this is how this looks like in Markdown, and this is how the Mermaid representation looks like. So this is the difference between just Markdown versus the Mermaid representation of that Markdown. So because the AI is programmed to document the build that you're asking it to create, and it will also create some Mermaid representations within Markdown. So if you don't have this plugin and you look into the documentation, you won't see this table basically view, or I would call it like table view, but like the connections between the different items. Okay, so we've installed that. We'll go back to our file browser. We go back here. Okay, cool. So we have gone through the prerequisites. Okay, now it's time to install it, and it's asking basically how are you planning to use this, because we can um, simply install it inside of the project where everything is going to be living in here, and we plan here and we execute here, or like specifically for me now, right? So let's say I'm not planning to pay for an AI package at the moment, right? So I want to use AI for free and still build a project, right? Um, then I might want to just go to a website and no here. Uh, right. So I might want to go to one of these like services, so Claude or ChatGPT or whichever one, and use the analyst there and do all of my planning using the free amount of like requests that they give me on that platform to plan, right? And you can use Gemini, for example, for that, because it does have a very large context window, so it can help you like brainstorm and define your applications and do research online and all of these kind of things, which is great, right? And then you take the result, so you take your a project brief as well as the PRD, and you just take them as files, as markdown files, and you put them in your project manually, and that's it, right? So these are the options that we basically get to choose from. And so it's here saying that okay, you can plan on the web, right? And then in that case, go to this folder, go inside of the Teams, copy this entire text. So it's going to be housing the persona of the different agents. So if I'm gonna open this here, so it says okay, we're going to open the Teams, and we're going to see the team full stack. So I'm just gonna open this. Actually, I want to open it in a different window. So just give me 1 second. Just gonna duplicate this. All right. So again, we're going to test Teams team full stack. So if we click on that, you see this is just a text file, right? But this text file houses basically all of the information for the various agents, right? So it has all of the context. As you can see, this is quite a large document. Which is again, it becomes very important to understand your context window, and this is why doing this on, for example, Gemini 2.5 Pro is going to be very useful. Because again, it does provide you with the biggest context window out of all of the frameworks, basically. Not the biggest, but like on par with the biggest ones, for free. So you can go to just Gemini, log in with your Google account, and use it completely for free, because you'll only need a couple of requests to get these documents built. Then you can take these and have them. By the way, I do want to highlight something here. So if you go into your code editor and you see, for example, that I also have Gemini 2.5 Pro here, this doesn't mean that Gemini 2.5 Pro in the code editor or the IDE will give me the exact same context window, because this might be hosted by Google. So this is just using an API key that will just communicate to Google directly, or this might be hosted by Microsoft with a much smaller context window, because they don't want to give you all of that memory for free. So this is the point of like just decision making at the end of the day. So yeah. Models. We just want to, yeah, okay, so mini. Okay, cool. Okay. All right. So let's go back to our plan. So I'm going to do everything in the IDE. just to show you how that works. But again, you can just do it on the website and then copy these files into the IDE and then continue from there. My project isn't going to be massive, at least not the initial scope. So I'm hoping that it will be fine, right? So okay, this is optional. So if you're going to do the planning phase outside of your IDE, I'm going to do it inside of the IDE. So it says, okay, you need to you can do interactive installation. So we know npm already, right? So we used npm to install packages for our previous project, which npm, which is the Node package manager, which comes pre-installed with Node.js when you install it. npx just allows you to basically execute a package without installing it. There is some more nuance there, but npx is basically just executing a package versus npm, which is adding a package to your build, right? Because we just need this to initialize like the file structure inside of our project. We don't need this to run per se, or like we don't utilize it for any functionality in our application other than providing structure and the build. So to do that, it's like, okay, just run this command in your terminal, which is what we will do, right? So we have a new project. This is the terminal. We have Node already installed. So node -v will tell us that we're running Node version 22.14. I might as well also update. So let me just say brew update. And okay, so I have a couple of packages that need updating. Okay, that's fine. Brew upgrade. Okay, just to make sure that all of our installed applications have the latest version before we start with our build. Okay, not sure what's going on here. Um, right. Okay, so we have the npx command. We're just going to paste it in here. Okay, that's also copying the comment. Okay, which is interesting. Anyway, I'm just going to get rid of that. Nope. Control and paste just the command. Okay, so this does have a installation guide, right? Which is quite easy to follow, and we're going to get through it. So it says here, okay, you're about to install bmad method version 4.43.1. Do you want to proceed? Yes. All right, cool. So very nice intro screen here. Always beautiful to see. So it's going to tell us, okay, where do you want your project to be deployed? I want it to be deployed. So just understand that if I don't put anything in here, it's going to put it in this path, which I don't want. So I want it in the local folder that I already have open. So I'm just going to put // which just means the current directory, right? I'm gonna press enter, and then it's gonna be asking me how do I want to install it? So there is the BMAT method core, which is like the entire agile team that we've run through. So all of the different personas and whatnot. There are different versions. So seemingly there is one for developing a 2D game using Phaser. There is one for using Unity. There is one just for creative writing. So if you just want to have the various agents that are more about, the analyst and whatever, just for creative writing instead of actual like software development. That's also an option, and we have a couple more. Anyway, we want to develop a SaaS, so we're going to stick with the Agile core system. So I'm just gonna have that selected. It's already selected with the green dot, so I can press space to like check mark it or like to remove it. And I'm gonna press enter to confirm. So I said okay. So will the PRD document will the product requirement document be sharded into multiple files? So this question is about a functionality that's built into the BMAT method. Is that normally when you ask the AI to create a PRD for you, it will just create one huge document. And if your project is large in terms of scope, then that document could already be problematic to have to load for each agent just to fully understand the context of your app in terms of like the size it takes in your context window, right? So I'm going to choose yes, and this will just mean that at some point after creating the document, I can ask the product manager, for example, to shard my PRD, where it will look at the PRD and like split it into smaller documents that describe a part of the application separately. So I'm going to say yes. Will the architecture document be sharded in multiple files? I'm going to also say yes to that, because the architecture document is generally even larger than the PRD. So I think it's going to be like good to do that. If you're using a paid version of an AI model and your context window is huge, you might think, oh, never mind, I'm just going to leave it into one document and that's going to be fine. I'm just going to add these in here just to show how that works eventually. Okay, so important notice, you can select multiple things, which is great. So it's going to tell you, so every like IDE, like VS Code that we're using, Cursor, Windsurf, Cloud Code, CLI tools, they have their own distinct way of setting up rules sometimes, right? Not all of them do. And for that, you need to select which one you're utilizing, right? So we're using VS Code, obviously. So we're just going to navigate to VS Code if I haven't missed it already. Oh, yeah, of course. We're using GitHub Copilot, sorry. It's the AI model that we're using specifically, not so much the IDE itself. So we're using GitHub Copilot. You can, of course, if you're using Cursor, if you're using Cloud Code, Windsurf, which I might add to this workflow for the next session because that's the one that I use, generally speaking. But we can also dabble with others. So I'm just going to select GitHub Copilot and continue from there. But you can select multiple ones. That's what the banner says. I only need one, so that is sufficient for my use case. And then it's asking me, okay, how would you like to configure these? So just use the default setup, configure things manually. And this is generally good if you already have rules configured and you don't want it to like mess up the things that you already have in place. Or you can say, okay, skip all of the settings. I'll do these myself. Considering that this is a fresh project, I don't have any configuration or rules already set up in here. I'm just going to go with the default, and you'll see how that works out in a bit. And it's then finally asking us, do you want to add to your deployment the web bundles? And the web bundle is just basically all of the like text files, the one that I showed you before, that are meant to be used with just like the web AI models. Considering we're not going to use it, I'm just going to say no, because I don't need these documents in my project. I can always go to GitHub and get these from there if I really need them. All right. And that's it. So it's going to run through a couple of things. And as you can see, it has already set up some things for us. Now, do notice that all of these are hidden as well, right? So they start with a dot, which means that they are hidden. And we will also ignore these in our git ignore so that we don't push all of this information to GitHub once we start doing that, right? So yeah, if we go into the BMAD core, you see that we have our agent team. This is the full stack team that we spoke about. So let me just bring down the terminal a bit. Do we want to look at any of this? So installation summary, everything is there. Web bundles, sure. Important, please read the user guide and documentation, whatnot. Yes, solid advice always. So if we look at the full stack team, so I'm just going to explain a little bit how this works. So we have a full stack team. And this describes what that actually means. So basically you have a whole capable team, your agents, you have the orchestrator, you have the analyst, you have the project manager, you have the UX expert, you have your architect, and you have your product owner, right? And then the flows, as described, you can have a full stack app. You can like focus on building a service app, which is just the back end. You can focus on just building a front end if you're just building like a simple website, for example, and it doesn't need the back end functionality. So yeah, all of these are there. Now there is something that you need to understand here between brownfield and greenfield. Brownfield means that you're working in a project that already exists and has a large code base. So it's like an existing project, it's already developed, it's already functional, it already has a lot of functionality. You want to add something to it. That's the purpose of your project. Greenfield means that this is a new project that you're just starting. There is nothing there. There's no configuration. There is no functional code to worry about. Okay. Then we have our agents. So if we look, for example, inside the file, so these are just sets of rules. That's what they are. At the end of the day, this includes no scripting. So there is no language in here. Like we're not talking about JavaScript or anything at all. These are just setting up rules, like I already mentioned at the beginning. So the rules here, let's say for the analyst, right? So there is an application notice, which is an activation notice for the analyst itself. So the first time that it's run, it will do something specifically. It will read specific files, and again, like all of this is why this is structured in this way, because the agents are instructed to read something in a specific folder, or if they write something, to also write it to a specific document or folder. And this is where, if you want to change how this layout is working, you kind of need to understand for each agent what they do and where they document things and where they get their documentation from before making any changes to these rules. Okay. Okay. So we're just going to cover very briefly the. I'm going to skip all of these like activation events. You'll see these once we start to interact with it. But let's look at the analyst itself. So this is the agent's persona. So it's like the agent has a name, which is Mary. It has an ID. It has a title. It even has an icon that it uses. It explains to you when to use this one. So use this for market research, brainstorming, competitive analysis, creating project brief, initial project discovery, and things like that, right? Which is all great. And then it has a persona. So this is how it should behave. So this is like the role, the style of like speaking whenever like the agent speaks to you, because you can like tell the agent to like reply to you in a specific way, even reply in a specific language. All of this is possible with the current models that we use. it has a distinct identity, and it has some core principles. And this is very, very important. So it's designed to be very inquisitive. So if you are like explaining your idea and there are some gaps in terms of like what the things that your application should have, it will ask you questions about it, or it will tell you that, okay, you need to make certain decisions, and then it will give you context regarding what are the decisions that you need to make in order for your application to like be fully featured, so to speak. So I would advise to at least go these and like give it a cursory reading, just run through these and try to understand how this works, because there is a lot in here, right? So again, this is amazing that people have already put in like a lot of time to build all of this out and to give you all of these like capabilities out of the box, where you don't even need to think about it, right? And it's great. So the architect again is an agent. His name is Winston, and all of these different attributes. And again, they have some core principles. They have some commands. So these commands are very important because you can call upon these once you interact with them. So you can tell them to do specific things, and based on the command that you provide them, they will have a specific like checklist or thing that they will do in order to comply with it. Okay. We have the orchestrator. So the orchestrator, it's important to understand when to use. So if we're going to scroll down a bit, we have the persona, we have the identity. Um, yeah. So again, the orchestrator will basically orchestrate the work for us, which is really, really cool. We'll read the context. We'll understand a lot of things. Anyway, this also changes a lot. So this gets updated like quite frequently, and there are always new additions to it and new tweaks and whatnot, which is really, really great. You have some code in here as well, so it's not all just text. But the code that's in there is mostly for the sharding of documents and the creating of documents and whatnot. Here we have some settings. So these are general settings that are now being set for this specific project, which will just mean that, okay, it's saying that, okay, chat agent is enabled. So that means that the agents can like use your chat window. Just some general, how do you call it? Good practice settings for GitHub Copilot. Okay, so let's close all of these out. Okay, so if we go back to our overview, right? So we installed it. We have all of the documents in there. And then, okay, we install this. Okay, so we have all of the files. We have everything that is in there. We don't need to. Okay, so yeah, we haven't updated anything or changed anything, so we don't need to reload whatever is there. And then it's like, okay, special agents. So we have a master. This agent can do any task or command that all of the other agents can do, aside from actually story implementation. Yeah. Okay, so we can use the master for like general instructions or asking a lot of questions without telling it to implement something for us, right? Yeah. So a special mention about the orchestrator, right? Which is a huge thing, which we already saw. So this is something that we should not use in the IDE, right? So this is meant for using on the web with a very large context window to like do a lot of things on your behalf, right? So if we are going to go in our IDE, what we're going to be doing is to start with building our project brief. Based on that, build our PRD and make sure that we continue with the architecture document as well as task assignment and all these kind of things, right? So let's start to do that. I'm just thinking which is the best model to use for our initial research, which is quite something. Okay, so we're going to start with the analyst, right? And let's stick with, I mean, I want to use Gemini 2.4 Pro. At the same time, I am also thinking of using GPT-5. Just because it's newer. No other reason per se. And I want to actually add something very, very important to this. Yeah. So there is something else that I really wanted to address, which is the following. When we install something, and we're going to be doing plenty of that, right? We need to make sure that the AI model or agent that we use is going to install the latest build and use the latest manual to install or configure that component. And in order to do that properly, we have two options. We either instruct it for each thing specifically to a specific URL or tell it to install a specific version, which is going to be quite cumbersome, but it's possible, right? Or we use this very, very beautiful solution that does that for us. Context 7 is a free service that's built by the Upstash project, which we will most probably also use for our project at some point. That basically has the information for most of the popular tools and frameworks and solutions that people use to build web apps, and is being kept up to date. So we can simply add a rule in VS Code that tells our agent to use context 7 always when it comes to getting information about a specific tool, or when it needs to install it or generate its code. Because if there is a new version that the AI doesn't know about yet, right? Because the AI models get trained at some point, and whenever their training is finished, the information that they have is only up to that point. And some of them have access to like also reach out to the internet, but you're not sure whether they'll find the latest build or not, or they might just take a different version than the one that you intend to use. And they might also implement it in a way that they might be using code snippets that have been deprecated. So these are no longer in use. And this will cause errors when you try to run your application, and then you have to go in and fix these, which is very, very common. And this is where something like Context 7 is really, really handy, because it will teach, or it will tell the AI model exactly how to install the solution, what are the best practices for it, what are all of the code snippets that it needs to use in order to like utilize this specific solution, right? And this is all in here, and you don't have to worry about it. So as long as we tell the AI to use Context 7, then we are good to go. So let's do that very quickly. Just give me a second. Okay, you can just have a quick look at our project while I sign up to Contact 7. Sure, sign in. All right. So when you sign up, and I'm going to show you that very, very quickly. Okay, so I just logged in and it's like, okay, cool. I haven't generated an API key yet, so I can show you this, no problem. I'll generate an API key in a second, so you won't be seeing that. The API key is very important because this is something that you need to keep private. This is a key that authenticates you. So I can add this to the configuration of my VS Code. And then whenever it needs to reach out to Contact 7, it will use that API key, which will indicate that I'm the user who is currently requesting information, right? So it will give you instructions on how to install it. So you can just go to, okay, you need to do the installation. You can open the docs, and it's very simple. This also explains the benefit of using Contact 7, but how to install it, you have to choose whichever like solution you're using. And it's like, okay, cool. If you are using the remote server, which is what we're going to do, then you implement this. If you're going to run Contact 7 locally, then this is what you use. We're going to use the MCP server, which is of course very handy. So this is what we're going to deploy. Give me a moment and I'll do that very quickly. So okay, cool. So let me just do that very quickly and I'll get back to you in a second. So I'm just going to generate my API key. Sure. Also, when you generate your API key, you only see it when you're on that screen. And once you leave it, then that is it. You won't be seeing it anymore. So make sure to copy it and save it. Preferably in your password manager. Key. So all right. Now I'm going to All right. Okay. Okay. So, um, all right, all right. Okay. So that's now set up. Sorry, it took a bit of time. It was a bit confusing, but okay. It's set up. It's not that difficult, but yeah. So I normally, just like I said, I use Windsurf and Cursor more than just plain VS Code. So setting up here was a little bit different, but yeah, it's with a minor bit of Googling, it's easy to figure out how to set it up. All right. So again, contact 7 is set up. So basically now whenever my AI agent would need to get any information regarding any kind of software, solution, tool, backend, front end, whatever, I can then tell it to refer to contact 7 and it should get the latest information without me having to copy something from online or uh, anything to or anything else that needs to happen, that I don't need to give it a URL from the website or like point it to a specific documentation or copy the entire documentation and put it in the text window in order to tell it to do something. All right. So having context 7 there is very, very important. So we're going to just engage with our analyst to just show you what the steps are in order for us to get our build up and running. And we don't have to build anything yet. So we're just going to stick with Gemini 2.5 Pro and we're going to give it a try. I might run through the same thing with GPT-5 and see how that works. So it's important for me to stress that planning is very key. So it's very important for you to plan properly. So don't be hesitant to run through your planning phase multiple times if you don't feel that the output is good enough. Or you can use different models to like plan. You can take, for example, a product brief and even a PRD and just give them a different name and tell a different model to generate a new PRD for you based on the same prompt or based on the same requirements, and see if they would come up with something that's better, or maybe give you advice in a different way or ask you different questions. All of this will help to build a better PRD that you can use to create your architecture document as well and continue from there. So we've selected the analyst, right? And we're just going to ask it a question. All right, so we'll start with just the discovery phase, and we'll continue with that on our next stream. All right, because I know it's already we were going a bit over time, but that's okay. We'll spend another like 10 to 15 minutes max, and we'll continue. All right. So let's start by saying hello. What are the steps for us to plan the build of projects from scratch? So here what's happening is that the agent, the analyst specifically, right, which the name of is Mary, as we saw in the documentation. You can of course change the name. Is going to use the AI model that we chose to run through its script, and of course like the information that we give it. I'm just going to make this window a bit bigger so that we have more to see. There is nothing going on here anyway at the moment, so that's okay. Okay, so it's like, okay, hello, I'm Mary. Great, you're a business analyst. I can help you do market research, yada yada. Here are the commands I can help you with. So it says, okay, you can use help and you can use the commands by doing / and then typing the command that you wanted to do. So you can type help, and then it should tell us everything that it will show the list of commands. But if we do this, then it also gives us a bunch of options. But okay. Okay, it's like, okay, we can brainstorm to facilitate a specific topic. We can create a competitor analysis, create project brief, all of these kind of things. So let's start by asking it about our so how this works is that we can tell it what we want to do, right? So I want to create a project brief. So we're going to say, we're going to select number 4, right? So this is the 4th option that is present. And let's see what it would come back with, because it would have some logic or some information that it would need to run through in order for us to achieve. So as you can see, it's reading a bunch of things, which it is, of course, is scripted to do in order to help us create a product brief that is like functional, that will get us to build our project. Again, so all of this was pre-built, pre-structured for us based on the Agile methodology. If you don't know what Agile is, feel free to research it. If you want me to explain a bit about Agile, I can do that as well. Just leave a comment for me, and I'll pick that up for next time. Okay. Now it's I just want to highlight that I'm not telling it immediately, this is what I want to build, right? Because it will right away go off the rails. We're not following the flow. We're not prompting it, or like it's not going through its defined cycle of like reading all of these documents, understanding what it needs to do in order for us to get the most out of it. So letting it guide the way instead of me immediately asking questions, and then it would kind of leave all of this information and not even like think about it, and start immediately just using the AI model and doing its reasoning and then giving me the result outside of the confinements, or at least the rules and information that's already present in the BMAT method. So it says, okay, This template will guide us in creating the comprehensive project brief, which is exactly what we want. So before we begin, it's like, okay, do you like to do any? Do you have any existing materials like brainstorming notes, market research, competitive analysis, or something like this? We don't, but that is perfectly fine. So I'm going to choose the interactive mode. I do not have any of the mentioned documents. Okay, very good. So let's begin. It's like, okay, what is your executive summary? So if you would explain to someone what your product is in a couple of sentences, that is the executive summary. So what should it do on a very high level? So first, please tell me about the product concept in 1 or 2 sentences. What is the core idea of the project? I would like to build a Twitter clone that has very similar features with the with the USP stands for unique selling point. So this is something that's differentiating what I'm trying to build from just Twitter. With the USP being that there will be multiple home spaces focused on points of interest outside of the normal home screen that houses general new posts and trends. Okay, so I want to build a Twitter clone, right? Which should have similar functionality to Twitter itself. With the unique selling point of this specific iteration of it is that outside of someone opening this application and just having a homepage that they scroll in and see like the latest things that might be interesting to them, that there will be home screens with like very specific interests. So if you're looking specifically for software development, you will have that. If you're looking specifically for cooking or whatever, right? Which in my mind would help people find relevant content that is relevant for that session that they are opening the app for, instead of just going in there and just looking at things at random. So this is the like very simplest definition of the app. There is much more like nuance that I want my app to have or do. But I will leave most of it for future because there will be more of this. So this is the very, very high level. And I want my app to, how do I best put this? Yeah, to basically discourage people from posting like things that are not worth sharing, if I may put it like that. So just having content that is like relevant or adds to value to people, instead of just like posting content for the sake of posting something. But let's leave that for later because that's topic that we'll need diving into. So let's put it like this. Let's see what it comes back with. Yeah. So it understood what I meant very well. Now let's dig a little deeper for the executive summary. What's the primary problem this project aims to solve for its users? Why would someone choose this over the existing Twitter, which is very, very important, right? Great. So besides choosing to see content based on specific interests, like already mentioned, this project will aim to do the following. Oh, I didn't mean to press enter already. It was continue. Okay, very good. So it's great that it stops and it doesn't like do anything else and waits for me to provide my context. So we're gonna start with discourage from posting content that has no value. Only valid information, factual news, no misinformation or how do you call it? Unvalidated info posed as facts. No okay. So the NSFW stands for not safe for work. I hope that it understands that. So this is going to be the core concept. So let's see if it thinks that this is sufficient. Okay, yeah. So it puts it very beautifully. So it seems the primary problem you're addressing is the low signal to noise ratio on existing platforms. So it's recognizing that modern social media platforms have a lot of noise, so a lot of content that has no actual value. And yeah, that's what we're trying to address. So coupled with issues of content quality, misinformation, and safety. Great. Based on our conversation, here's a draft of the first section of our project brief, the executive summary. So humble words, which is it took basically the folder in which the project is, and it kind of took that as the title for the product currently, which is funny. Executive summary. So the project is a social media platform, conceptually similar to Twitter, designed to foster high quality engagement and information sharing. Its unique value proposition is the combination of curated, interest based spaces and strong commitment to content integrity. The platform will address the prevalent issues of information overload, misinformation, and low value content found on mainstream social media by discouraging valueless posts, enforcing factual accuracy for news, and strictly prohibiting not safe for work content. The platform aims to provide a more focused, trustworthy, and safer user experience for individuals seeking meaningful online discourse. Right. Sounds good to me. How does this sound as a starting point? We can refine it now, or I can proceed to the next section, the problem statement, where we'll detail the issues this project solves more granularly. So proceed to the next section, problem statement, refine the. No, I think the executive summary is great as it is. As a question. Okay, no. So let's go with one. Okay, I want to keep going just to create the product brief, and then for the next session, we'll continue from the product brief to the product to the PRD, because that's going to be much more technical than this, right? So moving on to the problem statement. In this section, we'll articulate the specific issues we're aiming to solve in more details. Think about the current state of social media. What are the biggest pain points and frustration that you experience on platforms like today? Let's start by listing them out. For example, you mentioned content that has no value. Okay, so it's asking me what I consider to be content that has low value. Um, okay, so for me, people simply venting. Or feedback. Okay. Um, 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 okay. Okay. So this is just to name a few. I mean, there is a lot more. Um, let's start with this and see. As well as hype, platform access not sustainable to rapid spread of fake news, unverified information, presented as fact, and artificially overhyped trends. This lures users trust makes challenging to rely on platform market information. Exactly. Engagement baiting, a significant volume of content is designed purely to generate clicks, engagement, clickbait without delivering its promised values. Leading to, okay. So existing platforms driven by algorithms that prioritize engagements above all else often amplify these issues. Their moderation and content curation mechanisms are insufficient to filter out noise and validate the information at scale, leaving users with a chaos, untrustworthy, and often negative environment. What do you think of this section? Does it accurately capture the problem you are trying to solve? Yes, I think so. So let's go to the solution. So how do we want to solve that? Proceed to the next step, which is the solution. Um, okay. So how do you envision the core experience? For instance, tell me more about the spaces. Okay. So spaces. Okay. There needs to be a discovery area where users can see a list of spaces and their recent posts, where they can add any of these to their account and simply navigate to them from their page. Also be able to set any of these as the default space to load when they open the app rather than the standard page. Okay. And all of this information that we're providing will eventually make its way into an actual document that will describe all of this in a way that it can be used to actually build a PRD from. Okay, so okay, got it. Let's clear picture. Now let's combine it. Okay, so proposed solution. We propose the development of Humble Words, a new micro blogging platform engineered to prioritize high quality content and user centric curation. The solution is built on two core pillars: focused content discovery through spaces and strong commitment to content integrity. So the core concept of the spaces, which I just described, so how they will discover it, subscription and navigation, default experience. Key departure from traditional platforms: users can designate any subspace as their default home screen. This empowers them to bypass the general feed entirely and load directly into their most valued content stream upon opening the app. Yes. Key differentiator: content integrity and quality. The platform will succeed by directly addressing the pain points. Okay, discouraging low value posts, enforcing factual accuracy, zero tolerance for not safe for work content. Okay, proactive moderation to remove all inappropriate content. Okay, by combining user-driven curation via spaces with the foundational commitment to quality, will shift the focus from algorithmic engagement to a genuine value, creating more trustworthy focused. Yes. Okay. So how does this section look? It looks good, but we're missing a couple of things. So, okay. One other important aspect for Humble Words, I would like to have a an embedded code watermark that can be invisible to track authenticity of the origin of the post. With that, any repost should lead to the original post even after it was reposted many times. Offenders of the will get flagged and possibly have a restricted number of posts or no posts until review. there should also be a functionality for the community to flag content based on the criteria of the violation to make it visible to others when verified. This can lead to accounts being flagged or for the community flags to be removed if found, if unfounded. So hopefully it can capture that as well properly. And as you notice, we haven't even started talking about technology yet. So this is all just to understand what we want. And when we get to the technology part, I will still decide a lot of things, but you will also see that there are plenty of things that would either be new to me or maybe things that I haven't used before that I need to research for a little bit. But for now, let's get through this. Okay, so extended edition, these mechanisms of authenticity, traceability, and community moderation are crucial for building the high trust environment we're aiming for. They add significant substance to the content integrity pillar. Okay, so the revised proposed solution, core concepts, so discovery, default spaces, which we already had, key differentiators, framework for trust and quality, content authenticity and traceability, digital watermarking. Each original post will be embedded with an invisible watermark to clarify its origin, authenticity, persistence, source linking. All posts will automatically and permanently link back to the original post, ensuring the original creator always receives credit and context is preserved. Creative and community driven. Yeah, okay. So community flagging. Okay, so misinformation, low value content, not safe for work. These flags will be visible to others, providing immediate context. So violation enforcements, which is great. Zero tolerance. Platform restricting. Okay, yeah, discouraging. Okay, by combining user-driven creation. Okay, very good. I'm happy with that for now. So let's proceed to the target users. Platform focused on high quality, factual content with a natural appeal to specific types of users. Let's start with primary user. Okay. Who is this ideal user? Think about professional. Um, I mean, it's very simple. Any person looking for a safe, for a more human social media experience that values authentic content, no clickbaiting, and would like to adhere to in their exchanges with others. So very specific and powerful user profile. The desire for experience aligned with Islamic principles is a strong differentiator and gives a clear community focus. User draft target users. So target user are platforms designed for users who are disillusioned with the current state of social media and are actively seeking for more meaningful and principled online experience. Great. Primary user segment with mindful. Okay, profile the user segment not. Yeah, so it's not defined by age or profession. That's not really important, but by shared value system. They are individuals seeking more human social media experience that aligns with general Islamic principles of respect, truthfulness, and modesty. Great. Behavior, they are intentional about their social media consumption. They are motivated to find community spaces where they can connect with others without compromising their values. They actively avoid clickbait, misinformation, and confrontational content. Needs pay points, need for a safe and respectful environment, frustration with inauthenticity, desired for value-aligned community. Right. Um, yeah, that sounds good to me. Proceed to the next section. Goals and success metrics. 1. Mm, nope. Sounds good. Let's continue. Okay, I'm sorry, we're going over quite a bit, but I'll try to finish this as quickly as possible, and then we'll move on. We'll continue next week. So let's move to goals and success metrics. Okay, so what does success look like? Okay, it's important. It says, okay, these goals need to be measurable and have to be clear. Okay, so it's something that is objectively achievable. So let's start with the business objective. In the first year after launch, what are the top uh, 3 things we want to achieve as a project? Okay. Um, okay, so I think oh, so 1 would be this, right? Because that's going to be, in my mind, the foundation for um, this. And third, because at the end of the day, we have to stay somewhat realistic. Yeah, I mean, do we go for growth or do we go for achieving a certain? I mean, I don't think you can like achieve. How do I put it? It's not about creating something that people feel that they should use every day, right? Because again, we're focusing more on um, people engaging with the platform for a reason instead of just doom scrolling or just spending time watching useless like short form videos. Um, so let's do third. It would be rapid user growth and increased engagement. All right, in general. Okay, so Um, okay, well, I mean, you're welcome, but you provided the goals, so it was easy just to copy them. Okay, so the goals for source success metrics. Our success will be measured by our ability to cultivate a high quality community and establish our brand. So yeah, it provides some metrics. This is like just some general things that you might or might not achieve. Fine, achieve a 30-day new retention. Okay. maintain a daily active user base, metrics. Okay. Establish the brand as the leader in value alignment content. Yep. Okay. We consider the platform successful when our users feel it. Users feel safe, respected, users find valuable content, users trust the platform. Cool. Yeah, that looks fine. How does this section work? Yeah, that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, these are like more business things than they are like application building things. So these are okay. We don't really need anything else for that. I'll proceed with the next section, which is the MVP. Refine. Yeah, okay. Actually, yeah, there is one more thing that I want to add to my MVP, but we'll get to that in a bit. So let's continue with the MVP and move on. Yeah. So this is also something that I was mentioning before, right? So you'll build your app, and it's always good to decide for yourself what are the things that I would want in my application as a bare minimum to consider this version 1, right? So this is why it's talking now about the MVP, so the minimum viable product or the minimal viable product. And you will like continue building on that, but it's better to build something with the core functionality in place and fully functional and that people can use, and then continuing to iterate and add functionality to it, than to spend 10 times the amount of time building something that you consider fully featured and launching it and not achieving any user engagement. But if you build something that you think is the minimum like functionality that this product should have, and people like it, then it gives more value to adding more functionality, and your users can also tell you which of the functionalities that you still have in mind are a higher priority for them for you to implement than something else. Okay, so let's start defining the core features, must-haves. Good. So it has a proposed MVP, which is user account, so sign up, login, basic profile, posting, ability to create posts, logically speaking, main feed, just a simple logical feed, spaces, which again is one of our core like differentiators, content integrity, so basic community flagging system, backend tool for admins to review flagged content and take action, right? Does this feel right for the absolute first version? Are there any you would like to add just as important as you think? Okay. So um okay. Uh that sounds good. I would like to add to the MVP one thing, the uh, invisible watermark code for tracking, as I would like that to be in place from the beginning. And everything else, look, any other ideas I have, of which there are plenty, these I'll keep for future versions of this app. So it's like, okay, excellent point, including digital watermarking from the very beginning, a strategic decision that reinforces the platform commitment to authenticity. Yeah, indeed. So define full. Okay, so the scope is here. So core functionality, user signups. Okay, core social features, ability to create posts, maintain chronological feedback, ability to follow and unfollow users. Sure. Spaces, authenticity, admin creation, predefined. Yeah. Okay. So out of scope for MVP. This is also very important. To ensure rapid launch, the following features will be intentionally excluded from the initial release and considered for future updates. So user created spaces. So these will have to be created by us to start with, setting custom spaces as default. Again, this is something minor that can be added later. Direct messaging that's going to be there. Posting, commenting, or liking posts. Reposting, commenting, or liking posts. Okay, but we already have uh, okay, so we can follow and unfollow users, basically. Redefine spaces. Okay, no, I mean liking posts is quite a foundational functionality, so I think that should be a part of the MVP. Reposting, commenting, okay, advanced research, trends and hashtagging. Um, yeah, I mean, I would love to have all of these, of course, but yeah, you have to make choices somewhere. Visible community flags content, automated moderation for panel. Okay. Um. Okay. MVP success criteria. Okay. So I would add. Yeah. Okay. So I'll add liking for now. We'll leave the rest because commenting will need to add some kind of backend functionality. Reposting will also have to do the same. So I'll just do liking. Can we add liking posts to the MVP, please? Because I think that that's like the minimum amount of interaction that you can have with any content, at least. Um, so yeah, I think that is a good thing. So while I'm doing all of this, you have to also understand that all of the things that we're discussing are in the context window of the current session. And as you can see, like the chat does go on for quite a while. And that's why it's important to use a model that has a relatively large context window so that it doesn't start like forgetting the things that you decided on when you start this whole thing. So it's like, of course, adding liking is a great idea. It provides a simple, low effort way for users to give positive feedback. Indeed. Okay. So the minimum product has now changed. We can now the ability to like posts has been added in there, which is fine, and everything else is considered for the next iteration, which is great. MVP success criteria, yada yada, fine. Let's continue. Proceed to the next section. Post MVP vision. Uh, it does seem to never end though. So this I mean that's why I said like planning is important, and as you can see, like it is, you have to be very deliberate about planning your application. But having something like this, so having this persona with all of this like pre-scripted interactivity and asking you all of these questions and like summarizing your thoughts and putting this out in like in a bit in a good nice document is very, very valuable. Okay. This section outlines the future direction of Humble Words. It's not a concrete roadmap, but a high-level plan for what comes next. This helps ensure our initial architecture can support future growth. We have a great list of features that we decide to leave out of the MVP for phase 2 or anything after that. All right. So looking into this list, which 2 or 3 features do you feel are the most important to add right after MVP? Okay, so for the phase 2 rollout, uh, okay, I think these would be the most important for me. Um, yeah, so I'm gonna just copy these post it in here. These would be my top priorities for phase 2 from the list. Everything else would be a relatively logical follow-up from these. Yeah, sure. Long-term vision, look further ahead. Becomes okay. Proceed to the next session. Technical considerations. Let's go. Okay, so this is also very important. It's asking us which platforms are we planning to support, okay? And what are we targeting for the initial launch? I'm going to launch on desktop, right? So it's going to be accessible through a computer or a mobile phone, again, through like the browser. So you just go to a specific website. And after that, we'll transition to also having this app available on iOS and Android at some point. So starting with web, desktop, and mobile for the MVP, and phase 2 followed by iOS and Android later on. This is just to indicate that this is something that we want to keep as an option, so that we're not saying that we want it only to be web accessible, so that when we choose our technology stack, that it would also consider that, okay, at some point, we'll have to have this app be uh, capable of being launched on iOS and Android, right? And being this all like based on web technologies, it should be by default, but it's going to be more for other solutions that we're going to use in the backend to integrate with, which also need to be able to support their communication methods. Okay, so here comes a very important juncture. I stated already before what our tech stack is going to be. You're free to choose something else, right? So I'm not going to dictate for you what technology stack you should use, right? But if you're going to choose something else, do a bit of research and choose something and stick with that. Because at some point you will need to gain some experience about setting it up, troubleshooting it, how it works, um, what are the libraries and frameworks that are generally great to use with it to enhance its functionality, to make it easier to use and to deploy and whatever, right? Because we're focusing on building an app that should be very easy to deploy for free, right? We're choosing um, Next.js. Okay, so I would like to use Next.js with easy hosting on Vercel and hosting on Woolify as alternative. Yeah, so Coolify is a way to host your web applications on a self-hosted server, which is going to be of great value if we're going to migrate away from Vercel, which is a online hosting solution by the company that makes Next.js, so it makes it a perfect fit. I'm thinking of using Supabase for auth, DB, and yeah, small storage only. Okay. Upstash, security of endpoints, and I'll go through like the all of these various apps and whatnot very soon, not today. We're integrate with resend for emailing users. I have not mentioned, or better alternatives if you think they are better suited for our project and use case. Okay. Let me just check if I missed anything. Oh yeah, okay. I didn't say anything about the UI. For UI, thinking of using okay. I have something in mind, but I'm going to let it recommend something, and I'll see if I take the one that I have in mind, or maybe choose one of whatever it provides. Do you have any preferences for the programming language, frameworks? Mm, using TypeScript, type safety. Yeah, I think that's enough for now. Go. Okay, well, it says that it's excellent. Let's see if it really is. So, what does it say? It is excellent, modern, and well thought out technology stack. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. It's perfectly suited for building a scalable web application. Your choices demonstrate a clear understanding of the current web development. Well, thank you very much. So here's a draft of the technical consideration section. Technical consideration there. Okay. So platform, initial target MVP phase 2, web application responsive for both desktop and mobile. So in the future, we're targeting iOS and Android. Technology preferences and recommendations. This stack is chosen for a strong focus on development experience, type safety, and seamless integration with serverless edge hosting platforms. Sure. Framework, Next.js app router will be used for its hybrid static and dynamic rendering capabilities, file-based routing. Okay, sure. Language, TypeScript, backend database, which will be Supabase, will serve a primary backend as a service. Yeah. So it will be our database, our authentication hub, as well as minimal storage for files. For now, we will have to integrate another storage solution if we really want to like keep media files and stuff like that, because otherwise it will be quite costly. UI styling. So recommendation, it says Tailwind CSS for utility for a styling approach. Yeah, okay. I was going to say that I wanted to use ShadCN, but I was a bit hesitant because I'm like, okay, the app is going to be relatively minimal in terms of design, so maybe we don't need it, but it's recommending it, so I'm gonna run with it as well. It's not a traditional component library, but a collection of beautifully designed, accessible, and composable components. Yeah, great. Yeah, this is beautiful. So security, schema validation using Zod. I'll explain these as we go because that's also very important to make sure that our application is somewhat secure and that all of the endpoints of our APIs that we make internally are secure, and that we have user validation and whatnot for when people visit them. Rate limiting, we might use Upstash, we might use something else. We'll see. Recommending for implemented user rating. Okay. So Upstash, we can use to make rate limiting to make sure that people can't like submit something, for example, 10 times every single second. These types of rate limits. Email service using Resend, which has a great free tier that we can start with until we have like a decent user base. Server state management recommendation. So it says Tanstack query, formerly React query, is highly recommended for managing server state. Okay. That's fine. I'll have to look into this one, but that's okay with me. Okay, so the primary hosting will be on Vercel, which is going to be seamless. And then, yeah, hosting on Coolify potentially, which I would really like to do at some point. Architecture considerations, repository structure, a standard Next.js project structure should be sufficient as a monorepo. So monorepo just means that you have one repository for your front end and your backend code, and you separate them within your code base. So you know, depending on how you call your functionality, you either call front end or backend endpoints. Security, all user-facing endpoints must be validated with ZOD. Strict cross-site scripting, cross-site requests, indeed. So all of these. So all of this is like very, very important to be aware of if you're developing your applications, because, I mean, your application needs to be secure somewhat. Otherwise, there is really no point in publishing anything online nowadays. Does the section accurately reflect? Yeah, that looks amazing. Yeah, no, that looks good to me. So let's go with one. Yeah, now I thought that I could run through this in 15 to 20 minutes. But yeah, for anyone who couldn't stay with us, hopefully they can rewatch this later and get out of it the idea that I'm trying to convey. So we're moving now on to constraints and assumptions. It's critical to be upfront about our limitations and assumptions we're making. So timeline. Do you have any specific targets, date, or time frame in mind for launching the MVP? Yeah, budget, are there budget constraints? Yeah, we have zero budget, so no constraints at all. Resources, I'll be building this with a whole bunch of AI agents, so hopefully great. So I'm gonna go just one by one. So launch of, let's say, in the coming let's say 2 months. Okay. Okay. And lastly, who will be building this project? Are you? Yeah. So the developer is going to be really, really happy with that. We want to pull this off in 2 months, but we'll make it happen. Okay. So it's now let's okay, limitations. So timeline, MVP to launch in 2 months. This is aggressive timeline, of course. Okay, budget, no initial budget allocation. The project will rely on extensively on the free tiers of all the selected services. Supervised for salary send. This requires careful management and resource usage. Yep, indeed. So developers, okay, sure. Key assumptions. Our project strategy, so market demand. We assume there is a significant under served audience. Yes, persona accuracy, MVP, viability. Yeah, it's all very, very good. Anyway, this is all like more project management than development. So feel free to dabble into this or skip it if you don't like. Let's proceed with the next one. Okay. Okay. I mean, finally, so it says here we are nearing the end. This is the final section. So great. Risks and open question. So key risks, development bottlenecks and burnout. So it says, okay, you have to be careful to not burn yourself out trying to do all of this in the next 2 months. Sure. A significant risk of understanding the work of underestimating the workload. Yeah, very aware of that. Cold start problem risk. Launching a new social platform means starting with an empty feed and can be very difficult to attract the first wave of users and motivate them to create high quality content when there is no existing audience. Of course. Impact, sure, manual, okay, great, very good. What is this? What is the specific go-to-market strategy for reaching and attracting the first 100 mindful connectors? What will the initial admin created spaces be at launch to cater for the first users? What are the specific objective criteria that will? Okay. Okay. So, I mean, all of these can be decided later. It's not something that we have to do like right this moment. Open questions, yeah, we might fill this out at a later point. Areas needed for further research. This is quite important because doing this like obviously has some kind of legal ramification. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Yeah, so this is also quite important. So seeding means like pre-populating your database or like data sources with some information already. We might take some content from like existing social media or like try to attract people in the pre-built process before it gets launched. We'll see. Okay, I'm just gonna leave this where it is. I'm gonna say okay, finalize document and write it out, please, so we can wrap up today's stream and continue with the actual build next time. But again, this is very important. So I hope that you got out of it a decent value, that you understand a bit more what is involved with like getting your project defined properly. Because the documents that will roll out of this will really show you how important it is to plan, especially when we're talking about using AI. And if you don't do any of this, and if you're just going to write a prompt, no matter how beautiful and wonderful it is, and expect AI will just create a functional application for you, you will be sorely mistaken. Okay, so it has created a brief out of this is the summary from everything that we've talked about, which is great. It's like, okay, excellent. We have now worked together to go through all of this. It created the product brief again. So the persona of the analyst is programmed to go through all of these questions with us, and at the end, write out this document, which is wonderful. Great. So in here, just like editing any piece of code, it shows you everything that it has written, which will be green. You can, of course, like remove it, but that's not what we're going to do. So we're just going to keep it. We have Git, so I'm just gonna Git commit, no, Git add everything, Git commit -m product brief. This will just be the initial version. Great, beautiful. So everything is submitted, everything is there. We've saved our project for now. Again, we've not built anything, but this is also like very important. Not also, this is very important to start building. So this will wrap it up for today. Thank you very much for joining. Apologies for going overtime for like almost an hour, but I really hope that you got some decent value out of this session and that you'll be following along and building your application, because I'm going to be doing the same. And if you're going to struggle, I'm going to struggle, but that's why we're here. I'm going to pull you through it. I'm going to explain everything where you get stuck, why, decisions that you need to make, research that you need to do, how certain implementations will need to work. If AI will get it wrong at some point and break our build, how we can fix that. And we're going to do all of this live together with you. All right. So again, thank you very much. Have a great evening, and we'll see you on the next stream. Take care. Bye-bye.